I'm Anne-Marie from Brambleberry.com and this YouTube channel. And today I am here to show you this awesome beginner-friendly soap making recipe. That's right, we are making Orange Creamsicle Retro Popsicle Soaps. This project is completely beginner-friendly. However, if you've never made soap before, head all the way back to the OG videos on this channel and learn how to make soap from scratch, because there are important safety considerations to take into account, some science to talk about, all of that. That said, if you've got a few batches under your belt, like 1 or 2, this is a great recipe and project to start with because 1, it uses Brambleberry Quick Mix, so you don't really have to think too much of the ingredients and formulation. And 2, we really go into the science and kind of the thinking behind trace. Thick trace for the bottom and thin trace for the top. First, let's go over the ingredients. We are going to be using Brambleberry's Orange Creamsicle Fragrance. One of the reasons I love this fragrance is it does smell, yes, like your traditional orange creamsicle. So it's got those vanilla ice cream notes. It's got those bright orange notes. It smells like the orange creamsicle that you love and know from being a kid. But unlike most fragrances that contain vanilla, it doesn't go brown. In fact, this is the natural color it goes, just this very kind of light ivory. And so if you wanted to stay more white, you can use optional whitener, titanium dioxide, in the top layer, but it's not necessary. Next, we're going to be using Brambleberry Racing Stripe Orange to get this perfect orange creamsicle color. Finally, this is the Brambleberry 12-inch Tall Silicone Mold. Now, you probably are familiar with the Brambleberry 10-inch kind of silicone mold we use. It's like our go-to all the time. This one's a little different. It is taller and thinner for more of a vertical bar shape, which is perfect because when you think about making a popsicle, it takes kind of all of that verticality to do this. Now, of course, this is very cute, but when you go to use it, obviously you can pull this entire popsicle stick out, because another key starter for this is we cut the popsicle sticks in half so that we just barely place them in here as opposed to placing them all the way down. Okay, and now we're ready to get started. So I'm gonna be suiting it for safety. Remember, safety is key. When we suit up for safety, we want to make sure that all pets, all children are in other areas, we're in a well-ventilated room, and we have at least 45 minutes from start to finish to make our soap batch, because dishes that are coated with white soap especially look a lot like cake batter, and so we don't want any little hands getting anywhere near them. So I'm not going to force you to watch all of these things being mixed and measured, but these are all of the items we need to make our soap. We have the fragrance already measured. We have our lye with sodium lactate in there. Sodium lactate is optional. We have our quick mix. It is melted. We have our colorants. This is the optional titanium dioxide for the top, and it's dispersed in just a little bit of sweet almond oil. And then we have our orange mica that is dispersed in a little bit of oil just to make sure that everything goes in smoothly. As I mentioned, we're going to be making the orange base first. We're going to be doing very, very thick trace for that so that it suspends the white layer. And then we're going to be putting in our popsicle sticks. And then we're doing the white layer, very thin trace, and pouring gently around our popsicle sticks. Stick blender into our quick mix, burp it to get any air bubbles out so we don't end up inadvertently putting air bubbles into our soap. And then we pour slowly down the shaft of the blender for our sodium lactate / lye water. Lye water container immediately goes into the sink where it is out of reach of children, pets, and all the things. We're gonna get this very lightly emulsified. Then we're pouring off 8 to 10 ounces of our white into here to use later. And you might be thinking to yourself, what's lightly emulsified mean? Lightly emulsified is when you move your stick blender around and you try and make trailings and you don't see any trailings and it's still kind of ivory and not really very white-ish. And when you do that, you can see some white actually coming to the surface of the ivory. That is lightly emulsified. You never want to pour your soap at the lightly emulsified because some of those chemical bonds may break apart and your soap may separate in the mold. So we're just doing this so that we can pour off 8 to 10 ounces so we can use that for our white for later. And now I'm just measuring out 8 to 10 ounces. You could eyeball it if you wanted. I'm gonna go full 10 because I do want more white than less. And now I'm gonna put this to the side. This is not getting fragrance, this is not getting colored. It's just gonna sit over on the side while I very, very, very heartily and mightily stick blend this to a thick trace. Before I do that though, I am gonna go ahead and add all of my mica here. And so there we go. And once I make sure I'm at a thin trace, meaning you can see thin trailings on the surface of the soap, oh, it's so pretty, then you can add your fragrance. Now, you can stick blend your fragrance, you can hand stir it in, totally your choice, and it's faster if you stick blend it in just to get that very thick trace that we're gonna want to do our popsicle sticks. We're at a gorgeous thin trace. If I poured this right now, the soap would absolutely remain together. However, this thin trace will not support a second layer. So we're gonna get this to a thick trace. I'm adding all of my fragrance oil to this layer. This is like medium to thick trace. Now we are at a beautiful kind of pudding consistency. This is what I would consider to be a thick trace. And now I'm going to pour gently into the mold. You'll notice I have pre-done my mold so that I know exactly where I want to put my popsicle sticks. I'm gonna put them in between each of these lines. This is just tape that then I did just a Sharpie marker on to get these totally evenly spaced. Kind of popsicle stick guidelines. And so here I'm just pouring gently into my mold. You can see how thick that trace is. And that's exactly what we want. After I've got this fully poured in, what I will do is just tamp down on my mold to make sure it's totally even and to give us the best chance of having perfect lines. I'm gonna set this off to the side and scrape it out later into an extra container just so I can work quickly. So that's just gonna go out for the side. Tamp this down. So here we go, down. And you wanna make sure you have a little bit sticking out, right? Because we're gonna do that really thin trace white, but we want to have enough popsicle sticks sticking out so you have something to kind of grab onto. You don't want it down so deeply that the customer, the end user, can't get the stick out. Notice I still have my gloves on and my eye protection. That's because we're still in the active soap making process. So now this is fully placed. I've got my white. It is gorgeous. It is so fluid. I can totally choose to do titanium dioxide now or not. I'm gonna do some titanium dioxide just to keep it a little bit whiter. Totally optional. You don't have to at all. And I'm just hand stirring this in because I want this to be so thin and able to just smoothly and evenly go around my popsicle sticks. Now I'm going to be pouring just down one side and down the other. Slowly and evenly with a steady hand. So, you know, not too much caffeine. And you can see that white is just flooding in between beautifully. And it will be a gorgeous layer when it is ready to cut and make our Orange Creamsicle Popsicle Soap. Now that this is fully poured, I'm going to gently move this over to my heating pad and put it on my heating pad at medium to high for at least 30 minutes with a box over it to keep it fully insulated because I do want to force gel phase for this. And then this should be ready to cut within 1 day. And now it's time to cut. So this one's been sitting for 24 hours. That is it. We noticed that when we left this recipe in the molds for longer than 2 days, they kind of got a little crumbly and cracky, which makes a lot of sense given kind of the ingredients in the quick mix and all of that. So now I'm just gonna gently push out on the side. It's really tempting to use the popsicles. I would not, because you don't wanna accidentally pull a popsicle stick out. They're in pretty securely. Now we have our gorgeous popsicle sticks. I find it easier to cut on the side, and I also want you to use a knife. So if you have a multi-bar cutter, it's really tempting to wanna do that. Don't, because you probably didn't place these ideally, even with your score marks that you may have placed on your mold. So now all we do is we just cut in between the 2 popsicle sticks and look to see how our lines look. And pouring those lines is a little bit challenging sometimes. This did not have any titanium dioxide. So this is exactly the color that orange creamsicle goes. You can see very little discoloration, just to an ivory. I love how sweet it smells. Without any of that discoloration. If you want the top layer to be just a little whiter, of course, use that optional titanium dioxide. And now, if we want, we can even start shaving down the bottoms of these to make them even more popsicle shaped. If you do decide to cut, you can totally make a confetti soap out of this, or you can put it literally in chunks on the top of your next batch. Whatever you want, no soap is ever wasted. Hey, I'd love to hear what you want me to teach and make next, so tell me down there in the comments below. Of course, you can get all the supplies for this at brambleberry.com. Give us a thumbs up on the video, give us a follow, and hashtag all your creations Bramble on so we can see what you're making and get inspired. Until next time, everyone, happy soaping.